Hello, everyone. My name is Evgeny Simichuk, and you are on Build Your Life channel. And today, my guest is Massimo Marchese. Hello, Massimo.
Hello, Evgeny. Good morning.
Yes, Massimo is a product manager of RBM company. This company is Italian manufacturer of some different products like PRV, pipes, radiator valves.
Вода – элемент, необходимый для жизни. Уже в течение 60 лет RBM заставляет воду работать на комфорт человека. Постоянное развитие технологий для максимальной эффективности оборудования. Компоненты для гидротермических установок. Комплексные системы для панельно-лучистого охлаждения и учета потребления. В RBM мы знаем ваши потребности, потому что это и наши потребности. Мы разрабатываем каждый отдельный компонент, предлагая инновационные и эффективные решения, которые полностью отвечают потребностям современных сантехнических и отопительных установок, как домашних, так и промышленных. Компоненты для гидротермических установок. Системы для панельно-лучистого охлаждения и отопления. Системы для учета расхода воды и тепла. Системы для распределения воды и тепла, а также газообразного топлива. Шаровые и запорные клапаны. Изделия RBM производятся исключительно в Италии, на 4 заводах, расположенных в городах Наве, Половена и Виланова, все из которых находятся в провинции Бреша. На заводе в Половена штампуются все заготовки из латуни, которые проходят потом дальнейшие фазы обработки. На заводе в городе Наве на роботизированный склад полуфабрикатов поступает каждый день более 1,5 миллиона компонентов. Для полного контроля качества продукции инструменты тоже разрабатываются и производятся в стенах компании в специальном отделе. Все инструменты хранятся на современных вертикальных складах. Качество, которое в RBM стоит на первом плане, достигается благодаря современной и упорядоченной схеме отделов, которая позволяет лучше рационализировать производственные потоки благодаря быстрой и надежной автоматике последнего поколения. Применение принципа Lean Production гарантирует максимальную рационализацию и гибкость производства и позволяет RBM изготавливать даже небольшие партии товара. На своих фабриках RBM производит компоненты и для своих систем панельно-лучистого охлаждения и отопления линии Kilma. На сегодня многослойная труба RBM Titofix представляет собой стандарт, на который равняется рынок благодаря своему высокому качеству. Ежегодно в мире устанавливается более 30 тысяч километров труб RBM. Постоянный контроль и лабораторные тесты гарантируют надежность и прочность компонентов на протяжении всего их срока службы. На 5 полностью роботизированных линиях производятся изоляционные панели для систем RBM Kilma. центре качества продукция РБМ проходит строгие стресс-тесты. Постоянные инновации и непрерывное обновление технологий. Эта современная политика компании позволяет сегодня РБМ предлагать решения, гарантирующие максимально эффективную работу ваших установок. Продукция РБМ отвечает вашим потребностям, где бы вы ни находились.
Today I want to speak with you only about one type of product, it's magnetic filter. As I know, RBM was developed magnetic filter model MG1 some years ago, and MG1 was a good product and makes up performance in the market. Can you tell me more detail about development of MG1, reason and rating?
Yes, sure. Thanks for these questions because it gives me the opportunity to tell a little bit about the success of this product for the RBM. The idea behind of MG1 now is more or less 6 years ago when we start to develop the MG1. It was related to, let's say, one request comes from my CEO and also for the sales director. And the request was, we don't understand the reason why in UK market, for instance, magnetic filters are so popular. And we don't understand the reason why this, let's say, diffusion of magnetic filter is not so popular as well, like in UK, in Italy too. My, let's say, quick reply at that time, it was probably there are some specific reasons related to the type of market, but just giving me a few months to make an intensive market research, and I will come back with a proposal. The job I've done at the time was a typical job that a product manager usually has to do, because a product manager is not a role of a function that you have to stay behind a monitor, behind a PC, looking on the web, but you have to travel across the road, talking with the installer, specifiers, and have the ability to understand what are the needs of these guys. At that time, I understood one thing which nobody understood till that time. And there was one specific reason for that. I remember that everybody, every installer, each single installer to which I speak with, is concept of magnetic filter, because at that time RBM has a different filter, the biggest one, like the Ceph-Cleaner one at the time. And the reply was, okay, it's a good product, it's a good filter, but unfortunately there is no space underneath the boiler to fit this kind of filter. So if you look at the large majorities of the application of a combi boiler in an apartment, doesn't give you enough room underneath the boiler to fit a magnetic filter. And normally we don't use anything. Some of us probably use a Y filter, a strainer, but people want to use a magnetic filter, but there is any possibility. At that time, I started to think about making a different meeting with my R&D people, and we start to design some preliminary concept. Then with this concept, because we have a technology now which can help us to make 3D printing prototype, functional prototype that you can use also for doing tests. And I selected from the original set of installer and plumbers which I spoke in the past to come back with a specific meeting showing them our proposal. Mm-hmm. I got some positive feedbacks, some negative one. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, we finalize the final concept. Then we patented this solution because I understood that there was a unique solution in the market. I patented the solution, and we started to produce the product and to bring the product into immediately a big success. Why? Because RBM, and thanks to my job, it was able to identify a particular application in the market, which at that time wasn't yet covered by nobody else. That is the idea.
Yes. As I know, MG1 became so popular in the Italian market and the European market so fast, and many Italian producers decided to create their own model of magnetic filter. Some of them make almost the same MG1 model, like, for example, Atlas Filtering, and some of them made different models of magnetic filter with cyclonic effect. For example, Vortex Rigamonti and Totem of Mood. The design of MG1 and cyclonic magnetic filter is different. What is the main difference? What is the better or worse of
yes.
design?
No, you're right. You're right, Evgeny, because so I believe and I guess if a company succeeds with an idea, the real outcome on how this idea was a good idea is, let's say, related to on the copies in the market you have of your idea. And what we realized at that time, that many other manufacturers started to copy us. You mentioned one of this company because we got in trouble with them, also having several, let's say, argues at the court level as well. But that is the story of the past, because we had a possibility to prove that it was a real copy. But I'm pretty happy because if I design a product, I bring the product in the market and nobody copy me, probably because it's not a good product. So this is my idea, to be honest. But nevertheless, let me just to explain a little bit the differences between the different criteria and the different principle on how a filter should work. So normally you have 3 different type of working principle for a filter. Independently if the filter is fitted also with a magnetic function. One of these criteria or this principle is direct filtration. Direct filtration, it means that whole of the volume of water is filtered at once because it passes to usually what we say the cartridge inside the filter.
Okay, understand.
This is one principle. Another principle, which RBM has a solution for this type of product, like the MG1, but also the bigger version. And the second principle, the second criteria of filtration is what we call collisions. By collision, it means that you normally have a filtration chamber which is higher than the pipe size diameter. And then the effect when the water comes into this chamber is to have an immediate effect of the water speed, which goes down, and then helps all of the very heavy particles to be, let's say, stratified on the bottom of the filter.
Okay.
This is one point. The other point is when you put inside this filtration chamber a cartridge, for instance, RBM has a solution with, let's say, several layers inside, but there are also other manufacturers which have the same concept, which helps to, let's say, make a collisions between the particles which are suspended into the water to this kind of cartridge. And then all of these particles could be trapped and captured into the filter itself. By the end, the third criteria is the vortex one. The vortex one is normally generated by, let's say, a flow which entering in a position into the filter, and then the exit of the flow from the filter is in a different one. Then it goes to create this kind of vortex. Usually, the filters, they are very popular into the market, which use this concept since years ago, since many years. Usually, this kind of filter has any kind of cartridge inside because they gives the vortex effect the only filtration criteria. Then you can add on those kind of filters the magnetic properties, the magnetic features. When you look talking about the magnetic, let's say, features, you have two possibilities. How to have an external magnet, which is done by, let's say, I don't know if in this kind of interview, we can talk in a free way with other companies, but there are companies which use this kind of solution. Also, let's say, very good companies in the market. Others, like RBM, use the internal magnet. That's a solution I like it, and we decided as a criteria for RBM because we used this solution since the first magnetic filter we made. Because we strongly believe that if you would like to increase the magnetic efficiency or the filtration efficiency of your filter, the magnet should be in the middle of the flow, in the middle of the volume. Because the capacity of the magnet, when the magnet is mounted externally to the filter itself, is not so higher than the one when the magnet is putting inside. Is a solution. To be honest, I looked at let's say, competitors of us, even if they decided since the start for an external solution to fit the magnet, then they moved for some others, especially for the big filter, because they understood that this is the opportunity to increase the efficiency of the filter itself. Okay. So how I can tell you, so there are products in the market which is very good product, in my opinion, also a competitor of us. But for each single case, it depends on the type of installation where we are looking to fit a filter. That makes the differences. So this is just to talking a little bit, and just to reply to your last questions, the differences between MG1 design and cyclonic design. MG1, as I introduced you before, is designed as direct filtration. Direct filtration, which is done by two different types of filtration. One is magnetic filtration, thanks to the magnet which is fitted inside the filter. And the second one is done by the cartridge. Whatever size of the cartridge you would like to fit, for instance, RBM has different selection from 100 microns to 800 microns. And that depends also on market habits, because there are markets in Europe where, for historical reason, they use 500 microns or 300 microns or 800s like in Italy, or some others which use a different approach. And this is normally done by the expert of water treatment, because normally they prefer to have a very, let's say, thin mesh of the cartridge, which is used for the first 2-3 weeks of filter operation in the field. But then when this kind of thin mesh is done a big job of filtration, they replace it with the larger ones, because at the end, having a thin mesh into the filter, it contributes to increase the pressure drops into the filter itself.
So you recommend to use start using MG1 or MG or magnetic filter, for example, 100 microns or 300 microns. And after 3 or 4 weeks, you can change.
As a standard, RBM delivered to market a solution with 800 microns, because normally is a combination of the mechanical filtration, the magnetic filtration, which is giving you the high efficiency of the filter itself. Why we recommended sometimes to use a thin mesh? Only for companies which is doing the job, because it's quite complicated to sell a filter to a plumbers, which fit the filters and forget it. To ask him to say, okay, then run the filter for 1 month using a thin mesh, then you have to go back, replace the cartridge inside, and giving them. So it's depending on who the customer is. We have customers in Central Europe, for instance, which are normally do the job only in water treatment. When I have this kind of customers, I give him all possibilities, because his business is to do the water treatment correctly. But normally, if a plumber would like to do a perfect job, first a thin mesh in combination with a magnet, running the filter for a few weeks, then replace the cartridge with a larger one. In our range of products, we have all of the solutions, so we can supply to the market.
Okay.
Looking at a filter like the MG1 or several, let's say, products which are expired by MG1, okay, usually you don't have a really cyclone effect, because if you would like to have an important cyclone effect on a filter, you have to work with a larger one, like one of the popular into the market. Okay. In my opinion, in any case, a cyclone filter are a good filter, but there are one negative aspect, especially when you're looking on the new technology of boiler or heat pump. And this negative aspect is related to the impossibilities for this kind of filter to really trap inside the filtration chamber the very thin part of the magnetite, which is suspended into the medium of water, because this is really, really thin, even in a size which is lower than 50 microns. So, and the only possibilities to, let's say, filtering this kind of very thin, let's say, sludge, which is inside the filter, inside the medium, is to create into the filtration chamber a very higher and a very constant magnetic field into the filter itself, which the only magnet which is into the medium of the filter is not enough. And that's the reason why we developed a new MG filter, which is the one we discuss later, which is the newborn in RBM range.
As you told about a new one of magnetic filter from RBM, 2 months ago, RBM presented a new model, MG2.
Yeah.
As I understand, it's a different model, not like MG1. What is the different? Can you tell more details?
Can we talk with the product inside, behind? Maybe we'll help or not? Up to you, because I have this, maybe we should help. Everybody knows the MG1 filter. because now it's really popular into the market. Why we decided to present to a market a new magnetic filter? First of all, MG2 is not designed to, let's say, replace the MG1. It's a different filter. It's a different filter which had inside all of, let's say, the points or the missing feature which wasn't into the MG1 filter, which after years of product of the like the MG1 into the market, we had as a feedback from our customers that they continue asking us about it was important to have this kind of feature or this kind of feature, because you should know that RBM, the voice of customers is very important, because this is the only way to design a very good product, to improve the one that you already have. The concept why, or the idea behind the MG2 is mainly related to this kind of negative aspect I told you about the large majority of the filter, especially the one which using the cyclone effect or the one which using the collision ones. On the filter which use the direct filtration criteria, which combine the cartridge and the magnet, is not so higher as a negative point like in the other ones. The point is, I need to increase the efficiency of the filter. That means I need to capture from the medium, especially the very, very small particles. The very thin part, which are the one which usually caused high damages on the circulator pump or into the plate heat exchanger. We understood that the only possibility, looking on the way on how MG1 works, we understood that there was a very important magnetic strength around the internal magnet, but there was region inside the filtration chamber which was not so well covered by the only one magnet. For that reason, we decided to, let's say, generate into the filter a very and I can tell you the very higher region, as is shown on the cap of this filter, where inside we have the same magnet we have on the MG1. There is no changes there. But we decided to bring around the internal magnet, the central one, an array of the magnet also on the peripheral areas. Why? Because when the water, the medium, comes inside, has a possibility on all of the region you have into the filter to have a constant magnetic field area. And that helps and quite solved at all the issues we have, or the issues all of the other filters had, because they are not well covered in terms of magnetic region into the filter itself. And this was possible thanks to an array of 8 magnets which are fitted, let's say, around the internal one. That generates a combination. If you have a look of the magnetic line which is generated by the single magnet, it goes to cover all of the filtration region inside. This was one point, because this will help us to capture each single very thin element, increasing the efficiency of the magnetic filter from the MG1, which was around 67%, to more than 80% to the MG2. It was a very big jump. As well, we unfortunately, this was one of the points we never covered originally by the patent, but that's the other idea we invented to have a very simple solution to clean the filter when you have to clean it, because this lever is designed in order to, because then you have into the wide area, you have all of the part which is captured by the magnets, internal and the peripheral one. But when you remove this, you can easily wash under the basin, this kind, under the sink, in order to have a very simple way to clean the sliver, because the high strength magnets there is inside, otherwise it cannot give you the possibility to have a good cleaning of the magnet itself. This was one point. For sure, we still have the cartridge inside, because this will help also for the big part, which can be trapped by the cartridge, which can be selected to whatever, let's say, again, size of the mesh. By default is an 800 microns. But the other very, let's say, smart solution we proposed is to have one shut-off system mounted behind, let's say, the valve, but behind the boiler, which will help to shut the plant from this side and the boiler from the other side. Inside there is no ball valve. This is a cylinder, which is like a piston, which is built inside the filter, which just rotating the handle of 90 degrees, it isolated the plant, the central heating system, and isolated the boiler. This is very helpful because when you have to clean the filter, you just make this operation, removing the cap, but the only water or the only medium you missed from the plant is just the one which is inside the filter, which is less than a glass of water. This is very important, especially when you are using chemicals into your medium, because you don't go to alterate the chemical concentration into the medium, because the losing part is very, very low. But then people like to have just one system, which is built into the filter, to completely isolate the system and the boiler, and not adding any more valve. And this solution, the double magnet system with the triple filtration criteria, because having two system of magnets and the magnetic and the metallic cartridge inside helps to have mechanical filtration, magnetic filtration first, mechanical second, and the other magnetic, which is on the peripheral area. In whatever position you go to mount the filter, this position or that position. That means that you can enter in from here, from the system, and go to the boiler, or from here to the system and go to the boiler when it's mounted in vertical position.
Is the efficiency is both position is the same?
Yes.
Okay. My next question about the body of the filter. As I know, some companies make some parts of body of magnetic filter transparent, not without any color, for detected of how many dirty collected in the magnetic filter. Made gray or black color or white color body of MG1 and gray color of MG2. You did not make body without color. Why? How
color is something which is still, let's say, an open question, also internal of our, let's say, organization. Historically, black is the color which is selected for each component which is made with the polyamide material. Polyamide is the one which is used for the large majority of these components. Because it's identified for normally, historically, to use this kind of color. How you can move for other color, just adding pigments into the main material, okay, to found other solutions. In the past, RBM made also filter for OEM customers in red,
Red.
Red, yes, because it was a very important and worldwide manufacturer which approached us to design for them a specific magnetic filter, which was a larger one made in red in that case. With MG1 and also with our bigger solution like Self-Cleaner, we also decided to use the white one. And there is a reason normally. White because boiler, normally the housing of the boiler, the casing of the boiler is white. And usually people want to have like another white part underneath the boiler. There is not a real technical reason. It's just an aesthetics or a design. As well also for the MG2. This was it was like a battle inside because when it was an idea of our owner, he asked us to make the product in gray. Also, this is, in my opinion, is a good idea because it was to be identified as a part which can be really, let's say, meet and match the design of the boiler itself, because it was identified with a different color. That is the reason mainly. Fortunately, having in-house the technology to do what we want, because RBM has its own plastic industries, or the composite industry. Plastic is not a good name, because we have a facility when we have more than 36 injection molding machine, where we have a possibility to do what we want, to select whatever material we want, and also to follow all of the market requests, of the market trends, or the market habits, to bring whatever idea. And gray is one of these, for instance. At the end is like, because it's, however, is a technical material, is a polyamide material, which is charged with glass fibers, which gives a very high robustness of the product. And color is just a design criteria, no more.
Oh, okay. But I know, I don't remember what is the brand, but they have a magnetic filter, and some parts of the body is without color. And they said that you can see how many dirty collected in this magnetic.
Me too, I don't remember the name of this manufacturer, but there is a reason. Okay, this was something we discussed internally with our R&D team several times. We make, let's say, display samples in transparent material, because the message behind was, if you see the product, how the filter is working, if you see how the filter is blocked, or how much the filter worked, you have a possibility to understand when is the time to clean it. That's right. There is a problem. That is a technical problem. All of the material that you can use it to make a transparent, let's say, surface or the transparent wall into the filter, had a deterioration of their performances along the time. Because usually when you work with cold water, is not an issue, because there are pressure reducer valve, for instance, with the filter built in, which using a transparent body, in order to see how much the filter function works. But normally when you work with a filter, you work with high temperature. Then you have a variation of temperature from lower to higher temperature. Even if it's 70 or 80 degrees Celsius, when you work with a boiler, in any case, they goes to deteriorate along the time the material. And there is another aspect. All of this kind of material usually can be, let's say, cannot stay cleaned. And then the effect requires that the transparent body becomes yellow. Due to rust, due to everything there is inside. And then what is supposed to be a good feature, which the idea is good, but unfortunately it doesn't work.
Okay.
Starting from that point, I would like to tell you one thing which RBM and me personally, let's say, decided to build and asking my people to follow me in that idea was exactly following these questions. Are you interested when you have to clean the filter? If the answer is yes, so I can give you a possibility to do that. RBM is now in an advanced phase of field test to prove the reliability of, how to say, a sensor which can tell you when the filter is blocked or is becoming blocked. It's a very simple product when you can fit outside the filter. We started with the MG1 because we have 100,000 already installed in the market. It to me gives a possibility to make an upgrade of this product, of the Safe Cleaner 1. Just fitting this sensor outside with like a bracelet, and you can fit around the physical surface of the filter itself. Then you can commissioning the first time. There is just a button that you have to press, and until the LED, which is built into the housing of the sensor, flashing green, it seems that the filter is working in a good conditions. Then the LED starting to flash yellow, which is approaching a moment where it's good to, let's say, clean the filter, until flashing red, so it's a time to clean the filter. That means the filter, it continues to work, but their efficiency, because it's a filter, the filter when it's blocked, it doesn't work anymore. And there is a while when it's completely blocked and the pump stops to work because the pressure drops which are generated by the dirt and the sludge inside the filter are very high. It's like a valve which is closed. And with this solution, I believe is a good idea. We make this product. We are ready to launch this product next year because we would like to make a significant upgrade on a very huge numbers of MG1 filter which are already installed in the market. Only if you are interested to know if it's a time to clean the filter. If yes, just press the button.
That's a good idea. Okay. And I think the last questions, maybe you can tell about some new products in the future for RBM. What is developed now?
Okay, the one I just finished to talk to you about, which is this particular sensor, gives us a possibility to bring a product which sometimes is named as a commodities into the IoT market. Because the first steps is giving a simple solution, just also for Mrs. Mary, very simple to use it, press the button, because sometimes I say it's like the light indicator you have for in your dish machine when you have the LED which indicates when you have to replace the salt or to add some salt. It's the same, very simple. Mrs. Mary knows that he has to go to the supermarket to buy the salt and to put inside the unit, inside the dish machine. Same as the filter. When the filter, the LED flashing red is a time to open the filter and clean it. Very simple. RBM is since more or less 12 months, a little more than 1 year, creates a spin-off of the R&D department, bringing this spin-off into a new building, which is named RBM iBox. In this, let's say, environment is where I'm now. We brought all of our R&D resources, and there we created, we are going there to create new products, transform the idea in products. And at the moment, we are focusing our attention of the high energy efficiency solution. The idea of RBM is not to bring only products, but to provide solutions. And for sure, each single product we developed for each single area, like filtration, like in underfloor heating, manifolds, new pipes, etc., brought a possibility to us to make solutions for our customers. Turnkey solution from the project up to the installation and commissioning of the product itself. We have new products on the magnetic filtration. We're just finishing to develop a new bigger, okay, which has a functions also of hydraulic separator, low loss header, and a function for sure of a filter with some additional secondary features. This to bring us a possibility to propose a solution to market, okay, which you can replace like in a central boiler room. Normally you have a big boiler, or cascade of single boiler, okay. Then you have an hydraulic separator, and then you have a filter. Invented is a filter which has a function of hydraulic separator, but with the possibility which any hydraulic separator in the market has to be cleaned, to be inspected. You know, the large majority, even the RBM one, is a closed cylinder with the 4 flanges, let's say, built in. But you can never clean it very well because you have a drain valve, but you cannot flush very well this valve. We invented a filter, which is a function hydraulic separator, low loss header, when you can inspect it, opening the top flange and clean it perfectly, removing the cartridge, removing the sleeve. You can imagine a one, but with the functions of an hydraulic separator.
Okay, it's interesting product. And it's easy. It helps to installers and
yeah, save money and save installation time because you have 2 products in one. And then when you have to commission this product, to install this product, you have just to install 1 instead of 2.
Okay, I think it's enough. Thank you, Massimo, for information, for your story about MG1, for new product MG2. I wish you a good day and develop business of RBM.
And you too, Evgeny. Thanks for your time and for this opportunity to tell a little bit about the MG1 story and also what RBM is doing, which is not just a company which produces valve, but RBM is a company which brings solution into the market, solution for the efficiency and the comfort.